Hi everybody, today I'm here to talk to you about this palette from Makeup Revolution, or as they seem to be known now, just Revolution. And this is the Makeup Revolution London Reloaded Iconic Division palette. So it's the Iconic Division palette. It costs £4 on the Superdrug website. And this is what it looks like. So, if you're seeing any similarities here, this is actually a dupe of the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette, which I do actually have here. And this is what it looks like. So, if I can put those together, you can actually see there is a lot of similarity between those colours. And what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to swatch the Makeup Revolution palette first, and then I'm going to leave gaps so I can put the corresponding shades from the Subculture palette alongside them. Following on from that, I want to do a look, and I'm going to use one palette on one eye and one palette on the other eye. But what we're going to go ahead and do is swatch this one first. So I'm just going to pop some primer on my arm and we'll get swatching. So what I've actually got on my arm is actually just a MAC Prep and Prime face primer. I haven't used eye primer just because it's such a large bit of skin and that would take up a lot of eye primer, and I kind of don't want to do that. But I would use a primer on my lid sometimes anyway if I just haven't got an eye primer to hand. So I thought that would be okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to swatch them in the order they're in here. They're not on the same order in the actual Subculture palette, but we'll just go with the order that's in here. There are 14 colours in the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette, and there are 15 shades in here. The black is the additional shade in this palette. So I will swatch that last, so you can just kind of see. Okay, so let's get going. It actually comes off a little bit better, I think, on the back of my hand. So you can see there. So I might just leave that one on the back of my hand. You can see it's just white with a pink reflect. So this is just one touch into the palette when it's swatched. I'm going to just do another one and just swatch it a bit further down. So we've got our first shade here. Going to go onto the green. I'm purposefully just going to do one swatch of each colour. I just think it'd be better that way. So that is the top row minus the shimmery shade, which is on the back of my hand. Top row, one rub with the finger. That one was very powdery, the tail on the next line, as was the next colour, the burgundy shade. I'm going to run out of room. Disaster. Okay, anyway, we've got the next row, which is these ones here. So first row didn't swatch quite so well with the green and the taupe colour, but they're still pretty, and I think once you put them on a brush and layer them up, they'll be great. The next three on the next row were incredibly pigmented. This green, not so pigmented, not too green, but it doesn't look too bad. And then that colour was very pigmented. So I'm just going to move over to the back of my arm. It's just going to be the easiest way to kind of get them all. Right, I do apologise for this next row. Because what I've done is I've put the orangey colour, the mustard and the deeper burgundy here. So that's the first three. Okay, so I had a bit of a disaster then. I missed the green for some reason. But you've got the orange and the mustard, which look absolutely beautiful. That's the first two colours here. Then I've got the green, which is actually really pigmented. The burgundy colour, which is beautiful and really pigmented. And then that's the black, which is super pigmented. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the Subculture palette and swatch the shades that match up from this palette. I'm going to again use the brush with this pink shade just because it just performs better with a brush. And that is it there. Oh, sorry. That's it there. So it's actually, it is shimmery. It feels like it's not as pigmented as that, but this is just a bit more chunky. It kind of separates a little bit on the skin. So it's just got a chunkier texture, which definitely looks like it's got more pigment, whereas this one is much more subtle. And it's definitely more finely milled. So it depends the kind of look that you're going for. Personally, because that is so chunky, I'm not sure how that would look on the inner eye corner, but this one looks quite nice. But yeah, that's those two colours. Hopefully you can see them. They do look pretty much the same pink, If it makes any sense, this just looks, I don't know, a bit warmer. That looks a little bit of a cooler toned pink. Right, okay, moving on to these colours. Right. So, I think that that's the first one. So we're just going to swatch that there. You can definitely see the difference between the quality of those two shadows. That first shadow for me in the Revolution palette is quite poor, not very pigmented, and it's not quite as strong a colour as this one, but I do think if you layered it that it would be, so that might be quite interesting to see. The next colour is the next green, I think. Yes, is it? Yes, it looks like it is. So we're going to go for that one. Again, the pigmentation of the Subculture palette is just really superior there, and it definitely is a lot darker green than that one, so there's kind of no comparison there. These two are actually quite similar. This one's a little bit more of an orange toned, but they are pretty close. More pigmented, but not a great deal more pigmented. They're actually a pretty good match, those two. Next we'll go for the taupe shade. This one definitely is a lot better than this one. This was so patchy. I mean, I've blended it there with my finger and it's made it better. But the Anastasia Beverly Hills one is definitely darker and much more pigmented. The next one is the teal, which I'm quite interested to see because I love the teal colour. Okay. Again, you can see it's a lot more pigmented than the Revolution one, which you would expect anyway, because these are pressed pigments rather than eyeshadows. The Makeup Revolution one are eyeshadows, so there is a difference there. But the coloration is actually, when you look at how faded it out is at the bottom, it is an identical shade. So I think if you built this one up, I think you would get the same colour, because you can see how close they are at the bottom there where it's fading out. The next colour is this raspberry sort of shade. So that raspberry shade, this is definitely warmer. No, I don't know if that's warmer. I've actually, I don't know, I just feel like the Anastasia Beverly Hills one, when you fade it out at the end again, you've got that similar coloration, but it's just heavier in pigment. So maybe if you built this one up, let's have a little look at it actually. I'm going to put another layer of the Revolution one on top. Okay, so that's 3 layers of the Revolution one. It is not quite as dark as the one in the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. But it's still a pretty colour, it's not the same. Right, let's go for this lovely peach. Okay, them, not too bad. This one's definitely a little bit warmer. This one feels like it's got a bit more of an orange tone to it. But again, as it fades out with the bottom, they do look like they've got the same sort of base tone. And although the Anastasia Beverly Hills is definitely more pigmented, it's not too much more pigmented, if that makes sense. So that one is actually quite close. That's quite impressive, that one. Right, so the green. This one in the Anastasia Beverly Hills, like I said, it's definitely more green than this one. And this one seems to have a little bit of silver and blue reflex, whereas it's just a true sort of spring green. The quality of them is actually pretty much identical. I'd say the Revolution one is just a little bit more chunky. But yeah, it's not too bad. I think that's actually quite a nice little comparison there. They're pretty close. Similar quality, so that's quite interesting. And then the last one is this brown shade. This one is definitely different. This definitely feels, I don't know, I mean, when you do pull them out at the bottom again, I think there's a difference between these two shades, very slightly. Just feels this one's a bit more orange toned than this one. This one's definitely got more pigmentation to it, but yeah, this one definitely feels more orange toned. But basically, that is the first 2 rows. Not too bad actually. They all have, I mean, they're all pretty close. I would just say that the first 2 shades are the poorest, and the taupe shade is not too bad. I'd give that, like, I'd say they were poor, that's a medium, and the rest of them actually seem to be really good. So that's the comparison there. Not too bad, I'm actually fairly impressed. Like I said, the pigmentation's not quite as good on the Revolution palette, but to be fair, the comparison is more difficult to make because the Anastasia Beverly Hills are pressed pigments, this is an eyeshadow palette. So you're bound to see some difference in the pigmentation. There's a little bit of a difference in some of the shades, but it's not a massive difference. They're actually pretty close on most of them, so pretty impressive. We're going to move over and do the massive mess that I made of the order of these ones, but still, it doesn't matter when we line them up with the shades in the palette. So let's start with this orangey shade. So that is the orange shade. I don't know, these are actually pretty similar. Again, just more pigmentation in Anastasia Beverly Hills. I do feel where it pulls out at the bottom, it actually looks a similar shade to the Revolution colour, which is like the base shade. So I do think that they're actually pretty decent on that one. And then the mustard one, which I'm really interested to see. Okay. I do think that the mustard one there, I'm going to do it again on this other finger, just to be sure. Yeah, definitely. Okay, sorry, I wanted to do that again because I had used that finger, but it was clean. I do feel like this is darker. This is definitely a much lighter mustard than this one. This has definitely got a bit more depth to it. So I'd say that the mustard colour is not exactly on, but it's not too bad. You know what I mean? I don't know whether if you layered this, let me just layer that. No, it's not going to really darken it any. No, I do feel like that's the only shade, well, one of the only shades in the palette that is not close enough. I think it needed a hint more warmth to it to bring it to this kind of shade. We'll move on to the green. Right, so the green. Where you pull it out at the bottom, it definitely looks the same shade again here. So they look very much identical. It is a stronger pigment. We're going to do the green from the Revolution palette. And just put a couple of layers. Right, so that's a couple of layers of the Revolution. The one in the Anastasia Beverly Hills is definitely a hint darker. So that's quite a bit brighter, really. It's not the same shade. So again, the mustard and the green are not the same shade on the bottom, but they're fairly close. I would say that the yellow one is the worst one so far, because that's more of a yellow, a straight yellow rather than a mustard. Whereas this green, it's not too far away from that one. The Amazing Black is there, and then we're going to move on to the last shade in the Anastasia one, and that is the burgundy shade. I'm going to pull the edge out. Just going to put a bit more of this on, pull the edge out with that. The Anastasia one is definitely a lot darker. It's definitely got a lot darker base. But this one's really pretty. I really like this colour in the Revolution palette. I think it's just got a nice bit of warmth to it. It's a really nice burgundy shade. So, interesting. I actually think both of those are really pretty. This is definitely darker. But that is basically what you're looking at with the other shades. So I'm sorry that they're not in order, but it was on the bottom row you've got the orange colour, the mustard, followed by the green, then the burgundy, then the black. And those are the other shades. Overall, I think it's pretty impressive. The pigmentation, like I said, is obviously different. You do expect that. I mean, when you pay £4 for something, you don't expect it to be quite as pigmented as the more expensive version. Some of the shadows are not the same. Some of them lack a little bit in the strength of colour or the depth of colour, but there are some really good similarities. This one's really good, the teal's really good, the taupe's not bad. I think that we're going to put a little bit more of that on. It's just a shade darker. Some of these shades in the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette are just a touch darker. That's all there is to it, really. They're a touch darker. I'd say the first two shades in the Revolution palette are pretty poor, but the foiled shades are definitely actually really pretty good. They're actually fairly dead on, even though I think the pink is a little too chunky. So overall, those are your swatches. You have got Anastasia Beverly Hills are the ones on the right, and the Makeup Revolutions are the ones on the left. So all the way along, the left one is the Revolution, the right one is the Anastasia Beverly Hills. Not too bad. So I'm going to do an eye look with these, and then I'll let you decide on which one is which, and then I'll do a reveal on one of my social media platforms. I'll make a decision on that, on what I'm going to do, on which one it's going to be on in the video, and I will let you know at the end of the video which platform to look out for that on. And you can have a guess and see which one you think. Yeah, fairly impressive. I think it's actually a really good dupe, and I'm actually pretty interested to have a look at the one that dupes the Modern Renaissance, because this one is so good. I'd be really interested to look at that one because I do have the Modern Renaissance palette, and I absolutely love this palette. I have to say, I do actually really love the Subculture. I feel that if you've got a light hand and you press your brush in flat rather than kind of dusting it in, so I tend to use a flat brush with these. If you just press it in and just lightly touch, then you're fine. You won't get a lot of fallout, and I think they blend beautifully, and I absolutely love this palette, to be honest. But it's really nice to have a dupe for it, because I actually really love these colours. I think you've got a nice mix. I think there's a couple of good neutrals in there, but I do love that the colours in this palette are just a little bit different. I like the kind of darker, grungier sort of colours. That's just my kind of thing, and I really love like these shots of very unusual colours like the mustards and oranges, but then you've got some standard colours like, you know, you've got the nice coral and you've got a really beautiful bronze there, plus you've got a black. I love it when a palette has a black in because it's really useful to do a smoky eye, smoking out the corner, but it's also great to smoke the lash line out as well. So overall, I do think this is a great palette. I can't wait to use it. I'm going to use it side by side with this and we will see what happens. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Please keep on watching. My hours are now currently up to 221,000. They should be 240, but I do have a query in with YouTube because they were 448,000 yesterday and they've, you know, gone down to 221 today, so I'm not too sure what's going on there. But I'd love it if you'd help me by watching some of my videos to get my minutes up by the 18th of February so I can stay in the partnership program. Anyway, that's enough of that and I will see you in the next video, guys. Bye.